I put like a towel over the top of the TV, and I put ice on the towel, thinking, okay, it's gonna cool down. Stupid kid, and not realizing that the water is gonna seep through the holes in the back of the TV. Kids, y'all don't know nothing about this type of stuff. All right, so this is kind of a funny one. Gen Z can't read full sentences. Let's see what this is all about.
Younger generations are falling behind as reading declines. According to a survey last year, Gen Z read fewer books than any generation. And more than 1/3 of kindergarten through 12th grade students said they dislike reading.
Duh.
A Pepperdine University professor told Fortune, quote, "It's not even an inability to critically think. It's an inability to read sentences. I feel like I'm tap dancing and having to read things aloud because there's no way that anyone read the night before."
Here with her take is Brooke Ooten, co-founder of Enriched Literacy Education. Brooke, what is going on? This is terrible news.
You know, it really starts in the earliest ages, and we're seeing studies of children as early as primary school age that are unable to perform basic skills because I believe they're not being read to, they're not being spoken to in the home. Their communication skills are so much lower than children of that age, you know, even just 10, 20 years ago. One UK study reports, you know.
It's funny that she says being spoken to in the home. That's something that we don't talk about a lot, and I always notice it. I see it with children who are inarticulate. And it's not that they're unintelligent. It's just that they are not accustomed to having a conversation. So they don't know how to put words together. It's just not common. And I grew up in a society where, well, in my generation when I was a kid, it's not so much anymore, but when I was a kid, it was more of a rule of thumb that children were just not, you really shouldn't be very vocal as a child. You should be very quiet. You should only say yes mommy, yes daddy, short sentences, because that's respectful. Anything more is seen as disrespect. I was always accused of disrespect because if I just said any thought, like if I said, well, why would you do that? That would be considered rude, or that would be considered like disrespectful because whatever, answering back or questioning and that kind of thing. So that was really discouraged. It was only, I mean, I used to spend my Sundays at my paternal grandparents' house, and they always had lots of books, and there were people who sort of sat around and talked a lot, and they spoke, you know, in standard English, and they were all very educated. So I got that luckily as a bit of a release. But Lord knows, I mean, had I not had that, I'm not sure what outlet I would have had, because it's true. It's something I see a lot of the time, like simply just not having conversations with, like, and there's a tendency that we have often to like dumb down our language with children, which, I mean, of course, I'm not saying you should go read a PhD dissertation to a 5-year-old, but I think we oversimplify our language when it comes to children, and we don't realize, like, actually, I mean, it doesn't matter if they're not able yet to speak with the same fluency. They're listening with fluency. Like you're teaching them, you're training them to listen with fluency, and then eventually that's going to translate to how they express themselves. So I think it's very interesting how she said not being spoken to in the home as well, as much as being read to.
600 teachers were interviewed, and they said the children don't know their names, how to use the bathroom independently, how to brush their teeth. Which is really terrible.
Don't know their names? What are you saying? So how are the children being how does your parent call you downstairs? What do they say? Hey kid? I don't understand. How do you not know your name?
Fast forward, we have Los Angeles Unified School District, second largest school district in the United States. We have parents there saying their children are on iPads all day. One mom reports her 6-year-old wet himself at the table 4 times. He's otherwise neurotypical, does not have an issue with toileting because he was on an iPad and lost track of time and was overstimulated.
Oh,
so
my God, y'all are getting out of hand. But then also, who's watching these kids? How does a kid get to sit there through 4 cycles of pee, however long that takes, and you don't even check on that kid? You're not even looking at what's going on. There's neglect that's happening here. It's not you guys are like putting it on the kids, it sounds like, but who's giving those kids those iPads? Listen, when I was a kid, I know it's like, oh, when I was a kid, yeah, but when I was a kid, right, we were not allowed to turn on the TV until my mother got home. I was kind of like a latchkey kid, so I got home and I had to wait for my mother to come home, right, for a few hours. I was not allowed to turn on the TV in that window of time between when I got home from school and when my mother got home. And of course, sometimes my brother and I would sneak and watch a little bit of TV, and we kind of time when she's coming home, and we got her cool. Because what she would do is she would come home and she would touch the top of the TV to see if it was hot, if it was on. So when my brother and I, when we realized that that's what she was doing, we'd go, okay, about a half an hour before she's scheduled to come home, we'll stop the TV so that it has a time to cool down. And I think I ruined one TV set once because I went and got ice, and being a dumb kid, I put the ice, like I just put like a towel over the TV. It's one of those big box TVs. I put like a towel over the top of the TV, and I put ice on the towel, thinking, okay, it's gonna cool down. Stupid kid, not realizing that the water is gonna seep through the holes in the back of the TV. Kids, y'all don't know nothing about this type of stuff, but yeah, because I was not. There was the point I'm making is that there was some degree of parental control. There was a degree of permission that I had to seek from my parents. There was some limits being placed on it. How does a kid get to sit down in a chair and wet himself 4 times with an iPad and without any intervention at all?
If we're replacing human interaction and reading with iPads, people aren't going to like reading. iPads are a lot more intrinsically interesting to the brain. The dopamine is lighting up. Yeah. It's exciting. Reading takes work.
You know, it's so interesting, and we've spent so much time talking about how that engagement with an iPhone or an iPad kind of scatters the brain and causes anxiety and things like that. But what we don't spend enough time talking about is the importance of sort of the other end of the spectrum, which is the devotion of the mind to a book or to something you're reading and learning to read, and how that actually calms the mind and focuses the mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of research out there.
So that means that these kids are growing up without the ability to maintain focus, but without the ability to sort of calm themselves down, possibly. Like that, it's. I can imagine these kids are gonna grow up with a great deal of impatience because they're accustomed to things just moving fast and quick and getting everything immediately. So when something is not, it's like they won't have any ability to. They won't have any delayed gratification. That's terrifying, actually. I don't want to be an old, feeble person when those kids are grown. That sounds like a dangerous world.
Even, at the very littlest age, when we respond to our babies make a noise and we respond. That's called serve and return. That is how they develop language. And, it's interesting because going back to LAUSD, their argument for bringing technology into the classroom was this is going to level the field from a socioeconomic perspective because children that are in underserved communities need to be tech literate. Well, actually, the research shows it has very little to do with your means in terms of the quality of the language development in your home. It has to do with how much you interact and talk to and read to your child. And now we're looking at, the New York Times this fall came out with an article, 1/3 of our high school seniors are not ready for college. They do not have a basic reading level.
Wow.
Yeah,
but it's not just the amount of interaction, it's the quality of those interactions too, because I mean, if you're not communicating with a young person in a certain way, like for instance, when I was a kid, my folks didn't they didn't like to just answer questions like that. If I, kids ask a lot of questions, they would challenge me. They would go, why do you think that is, and why do you think that is? So if that's the reason for this, therefore it must be that. And they would make me work it out. They would help me along. And actually, not just my parents, but this was like uh, this was a way that I realized many adults around me would communicate with me. It's like they would go, tell me why, work it out, or they would make me go look things up on my own. So if in contrast, in modern day, these parents are not only are they not communicating and interacting with their children regularly enough, the quality of those interactions when they have them probably are not going to be very substantial either, right? Because I mean, these parents are obviously not conscious or conscientious. They're not really intentional about this practice of parenting. It's obvious because these kids are being allowed to do whatever they want. So, I, my gosh, these kids are, they're in a lot of trouble. I thought my generation was in trouble when social media first came about, but at least we were older then, so I think we had a little bit more discernment and a little bit more. I mean, we're still pretty messed up by social media, but there's still a level of there's still a standard that we were accustomed to. These kids have no standard at all, or the standard that they have is totally different.
They're high school seniors.
It's fascinating. These tech oligarchs convinced all of the schools and the government to put these devices into the school, these iPads, and then they send their own kids to Waldorf schools with like wooden toys. It's fascinating to me, and also the fact that a lot of moms aren't reading to their children. So that's a big deal. Thank you, Brooke. It's a very important topic.
Thank you, Brooke.
Yo, somebody needs to go get these kids, yo, because we don't realize that this is shaping a character of a person in the future. Like, what are these kids gonna be like? Are they gonna be very impatient, anxious? What's the quality of their relationships gonna be like? I think relationships in the world, the standard of relationships in the world is changing. And not just, I mean, friendships, but also like, romantic relationships and that kind of thing. The way that people interact is totally different now. Back then, when I say back then, I mean in my day, right, in the 90s and early 2000s, like, just think about love songs, everything was about I love you forever, and you'll always be mine, and love me till the end of time, and I'm hopelessly devoted to you, and these types of things. Nowadays, it's like, I don't even know. I don't even know what it is these days. It's like, it's just complete, just everything. It's everything goes is what it is. It's just all for all. It's everybody's gonna, let's just fuck everything and everybody and fuck everybody, and I don't give a fuck because I don't give a fuck because I'm a thug. I don't give a fuck because I don't fuck that bitch with a grip, and I'm gonna get it. Woo! Father, help us.